All right, hey, welcome back. Now we're going to talk about the nature of news writing and how it differs from all the other writing that you've probably done in your life. You know, whenever you write an essay, like somebody has to read it, somebody gets paid to read that, and so consequently they do. Or not, but they're supposed to. With news writing, nobody has to read your stuff. Like nobody like is required to read the things that you write. And so when you write it, you need to take care to organize it in such a way that it makes it easy for the reader. So here are some other things to keep in mind. One, it's not an art form. Like we're not asking you again haikus, sonnets, nothing. This is very formulaic, very mechanical. There's a right way to organize information in a press release. You can do this. The other thing is that it doesn't have time to be artsy. The essence of news writing is immediacy. Somebody has to share information right now, right? Or if you wait a month, it's no longer news. And so, like this is a thing, like it has to come fast. And then the other thing that you just need to know is that the average news article is written at an 8th grade level. Doesn't that make you sad for America? This is true. New York Times written at an 11th grade level. Like USA Today, I think, is written at a 5th grade level. So right in the middle, 8th grade. Get excited. So the essence of news, again, is immediacy. Like news has stuff to do, all right? And so if you can imagine, this is the story that I used to tell 4-H volunteers. Like if Timmy and Lassie were out for a walk, and Timmy, as he often does, falls down a well, and Lassie like runs home, like down the dirt road, like past the neighbor's house, up into the kitchen. Like, what does he tell, Timmy's mom? And the answer is nothing because he's a dog. But but the main thing is that he wouldn't start the story with, "It was a dark and stormy day, and me and my friend Timmy were out for a walk, and everything was." No, you would not do it that way. You would start with the most important information first, which is a local boy fell down a well. Like you've heard this on the nightly news, right? That's the most important thing. So whenever you organize your information, this is called the inverted pyramid. Okay. And the inverted pyramid, again, it's just sort of like, it's different from what you're used to. Think of ordinarily you would write in sort of like conceptually a diamond shape, okay? And so the point of the diamond is you would tell them what you're going to tell them, and then in the middle you would have like 3 or 4 main points, and then at the end you would tell them what you told them, all right? And that's like an essay or most things that you write. Inverted pyramid is just chopped off. You tell them the most important thing first, followed by the second most important thing, and on down the line until you get to things that are not important, and then you just end. There's no wrap up, no nothing. And this is done so that Ma and Pa, reading the newspaper in the morning, drinking their coffee, can read the first 2 paragraphs of a newspaper story and decide if it's worth reading the rest of. They can read the first 2 paragraphs and sort of get the gist of it, and if they want to go deeper and learn more, they can read the rest of it, or they can move on to the next thing. Hopefully that makes sense. Oh, I guess I just told you about the inverted pyramid. But again, front load the information. No need to give them backstory. You just tell them what happened. Again, because people don't read stories, they skim stories typically, or they read the first 2 paragraphs, decide if they want to read more. Typically they don't get into the whole thing. If you wrote it and you buried the lead, that's a thing that people say. Like if you don't come to the point of your story until the 3rd or 4th paragraph, nobody's going to read that story. Another reason that people write in the inverted pyramid is because back in the day when people published stuff in newspapers, there's only so much physical room in a newspaper. And so if they needed to cut from your story, they would cut from the bottom because that's the thing that's least important, theoretically, if you organize it correctly. So what is important? How do we organize the information? So here's some things. I don't know why there's a lamb there. I don't. So here's some, okay. So some good ways to start is to think about who, what, where, when, and why, and which of those are most important. The underlying thing that you always want to get at in your stories is so what? Like what makes this like important? Like why should people read this? And so, depending on the order and depending on which one of these things you focus on, the who, the what, the where, will depend on, the story that you're writing. And we call that the angle, like that you go at it. I just want you to get your jargon right. So let's move on to parts of the story. There are 3 parts to the story. That's it. 3. And they are, the lead is the first one, and the lead is the first paragraph of your story. I'm going to tell you that whenever you write your story, if you do it properly, it'll take you half the time that you spend writing your story to write the lead. Once you get this right, everything else flows from it. And so what it's supposed to do is capture the reader's interest, give the most important information about the story, and then sort of gives them an idea of what the rest of it will be about, all right? And so some things to help you get at, like what is your lead, what is the most important part of the story you're telling, is just to ask yourself that over and over again. Like, what is my story really about? Like, what is the most important thing? What makes it unique? Like, why should people care? And if you write it and you find that your first paragraph doesn't match everything else, then you've written the wrong lead and you need to start over. The second thing, oh, sorry, just kidding. The lead should only be 2 to 3 sentences. Here's a fascinating fact. In news writing, the average paragraph lengths are 36 to 40 words. This is considerably smaller paragraphs than you would write in an essay for class because people have shorter attention spans and you need to give them bite-sized chunks of information. Again, that's all the stuff that I did before. There are 2 different types of lead, though, and this is the thing that I need for you to understand. There's the hard news lead and the soft news lead, and we're going to talk about the differences between those later on. Here's some examples. Sorry, I guess we're going to do it right now. So here's an example of a hard news lead, all right? So Governor Rick Scott, who's the governor of Florida, and legislators are so opposed to tuition increases that they want to change the law to get even more control over future hikes. That's a hard news lead. Like, that's the facts. Who is it? Governor Rick Scott. Because he's the governor, he's important, and so you would lead with the who. All right. So that's from the St. Pete Times. Here's one of my favorites. A woman accused of hitting her husband in the face with a spatula and throwing his chicken in a swimming pool was arrested in a foul-related flap in Vero Beach, according to recently released records. This is from Treasure Coast Palm. This is a real story, believe it or not, in one of my hometowns. So both of these are just very factual, very straightforward. So you've read the first paragraph and you know what the rest of this story is going to be about. These are good leads. All right, let's move on. Let's move on, PowerPoint. All right, sorry. All right, the second big, piece in a newspaper story, in a news press release, is what we call the nut graph. It's kind of awkward. You can also call it a summary paragraph. And what it does is it follows on the heels of the lead and gives critical follow-up details. This is sort of like where you get like the extra information that gives context to the first paragraph. All right. And so if you think about, from like an angler, or a fishing metaphor, the lead is the hook. And then the nut graph is that snatchy thing that fishermen do all dramatic like on OLN. So here's the second paragraph to the first leads that I showed you. So remember, it was Governor Rick Scott. What was it? Governor Rick Scott. Legislators are so opposed to tuition hikes. Blah 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 blah. So you would say currently the state universities can ask Board of Governors for up to 15% higher rates, known as tuition differential. Additionally, there is an automatic increase to give up with inflation. House Speaker Will Weatherford and Senate President Don Geitz have proposed cutting that flexibility by more than half. Governor Rick Scott wants to eliminate it altogether, making it that much tougher to raise tuition. All right, so that's a good summary paragraph because now we've read section 1 or the lead in this paragraph, and we sort of know what's happening, and so the rest of it will be more details. Here's the exciting summary of our person that got hit with a spatula. The husband of Darlene Daney, 40, told Indian River County Sheriff's officials December 10th that he was looking for chicken on the grill when Daney approached him, inquiring about a woman's number on his phone. When he denied calling the number 32 times, she accused him of cheating and became violent, according to affidavits. And so that's a good summary paragraph. It's got like kind of a weird sentence where it's like, did he deny it 32 times or did he call it 32 times? That's a little bit awkward. Also, this should be violent, not violent. But you see how that sort of gives, critical follow-up information to the lead. And then from here on out, we expect the information that follows to support the information that we've learned here. All right, cool. What happens next, the third in the 3 parts of the press release, is everything else. And so basically you just, look at all the information that you have to share and then you organize it according to importance. some tips are, place your quotes high in the story. Readers love quotes because what they're doing is essentially like having a guest star on your show. It adds variety to the voices, and it adds a little bit of authenticity, I think, too. And so you always want to have quotes in your stories. Like hint, hint, you always need to have quotes, and then and put them up high because people love them. All right, that was great. Super. The last thing that you need to have is the boilerplate for your organization. And a boilerplate, and I don't know why it's called this, don't ask me, is like basic information about your organization. And it's the way that you end like a press release if you're concerned with how to end it. All right. And so, for the National Wildlife Federation, their boilerplate may be something as simple as the National Wildlife Federation is an organization or a nonprofit organization dedicated to the conservation of, endangered animals in North America. Their headquarters is in Boulder, Colorado. They can be reached at blah, 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 blah. And that's what's called a boilerplate. It's just the thing that goes at the absolute bottom of your press release that gives basic information about your organization so that people can call you or get in contact with you if they want to learn more. So do that. All right, when we come back, we'll talk about hard news versus soft news. Stay with me.